Welcome everyone at the Innovation Café. Most of you have already been here before, but for the people who haven't been here, we are a networking event, normally live at Kazerne. Nowadays, we are doing this online with presentations to show what Eindhoven has to offer in the fields of tech and design. And we do this by organizing presentations, discussions, workshops, etc. Always with a Q&A afterwards. This time we had speaker Marlou van der Cruijsen from Baltan Lab. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Marlou, thank you for the interesting talk and to tell us a little bit more about what Baltan does. Like I said, if anyone has a question, feel free to join the conversation or put it in the chat. I also have some questions for you, Marlou, yeah, curious to hear what else we can discuss. First, I wanted to check with you if you can share a little bit about your own background, because I mean, you're a program leader at Baltan. Maybe you could share a little bit about what you have done in the past and how you got to Baltan.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Margot, for inviting me first, and thanks everyone for joining. So I graduated in cultural studies at the Radboud University in Nijmegen. And I actually graduated with my master thesis about Harry Potter. So I felt very strongly to that if you are in cultural studies, you should also look at popular culture because in my opinion, it tells a lot about the culture that we're living in, and it tells a lot about society. And then after my studies, I actually started as an intern at Baltan. So I did pretty much everything that we do at Baltan. So first I was interning, then I was more doing the production more, did the administrations, and then when the organization was growing over the past few years, I kind of grew along with it. So yeah, now I'm a program leader and I'm also taking care of the financial stuff, but that's way more boring to talk about. So yeah, that's it.
It's nice to hear because I did the same studies, so it's really fun to see someone that also did the same thing as me. I obviously it's like a topic that we can't really avoid. COVID is there. Can you share a little bit about? You already shared a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more on how different the situation was and what the biggest changes were for you guys in organizing things?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, when we like last year now, yeah, pretty much about a year ago, when the Netherlands first went into lockdown and COVID was here, we were actually in the middle of preparing the second edition of the Economia Festival. And it was originally planned half of May, I believe, in 2020. So you can imagine that by March, we were already quite up to speed with it. So when we heard that that we probably had to postpone it or delay it, I think after a week or two, we decided, okay, we're not gonna just postpone it as it is. We're gonna take our time, reconsider what we can do online now, because we wanted to avoid to have only Zoom sessions. Not that, no offense for Zoom sessions. We had Zoom sessions, but we didn't want to do only Zoom sessions. So that's why we spread the whole festival from June to November. So I think we had about 1 or 2 events each month with pre-recorded lectures. So the compilation video that I showed, you could also see it that we really wanted to make an effort in making it visually attractive, and also that these videos would still be nice to look at also after the event. So we actually made the Economia program way bigger than it was originally supposed to be, because it turned out that it kind of works online. We have an international audience. So for that, it was also easier, of course, to join if it was online. Yeah, and now, we're still in the same situation. So we're thinking about new formats, new things to do. But yeah, I have to be honest, it is really a challenge
Yeah.
because online is still online, and like we are now in this Zoom room together, but it's not at all like being in your beautiful cafe, drinking a beer or a cup of coffee and just having a spontaneous talk. So yeah, it's also something we really miss.
Yeah. And you mentioned as well, like you guys have similar concepts as well at your location. So I can imagine like it's not just going out for other things, but also like really having like the people in your location. Um, we
Yeah, definitely.
we have a question from our audience. He's saying, thanks for the interesting talk. It's an intriguing approach. As the homo socialis and the connection between collective and the individual, what's your experience with the breakup of the collective into different bubbles of or echo chambers?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Um, yeah, we talk about it a lot actually, also within our team at Baltan. We actually had, as part of Economia, a lecture that sparked a lot of online discussion. And um, I think, especially if you're talking about hard topics or things that aren't easy, right? We are talking about injustice or social inequality. And it's very hard, I feel, to kind of try to find a common ground. So, on the one hand, um, you have people who strongly disagree, and then on the other hand, you have people who strongly agree, but somehow facilitating a conversation um, is very hard. And I think, especially now we do everything is online, you also don't end up in the same room anymore. Part of our program is, uh, as I said, we work with different disciplines on the edges of disciplines. So one of the things we really like to do is to just get technologists and artists and philosophers in the same room, to get them talking to each other. And that's easier if they're actually in the same room, to have an open conversation. I think that's, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
We can't hear you, Hans, but I think that's a yes. um,
That was a yes,
okay,
indeed.
good.
Yeah.
What you're
So
mentioning. Oh, sorry.
you're finding it very difficult to bridge the gap between yes or no. So the two sides. There's a lot of opposition and polarization, I think. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think so. There is a lot of. It's it. I think it's always difficult to bridge the gap. You are in any way. Maybe it's human nature to be more. It's easier to talk to the people who agree with you than to the people who disagree with you. Um, but getting like physical meetings, organizing them, that's one way of overcoming that difference so that people are actually in the same room. And I think, um, just blurting your opinion on social media, that's there's no room for an actual conversation. I sometimes feel that there are a lot of opinions, but no one is actually talking to each other.
Do you use special creative techniques to make people listen and to listen to one another and then talk about it in a more less heated way?
Um, well, what we did in the past, we experiment with different forms. So one format that one of my colleagues initiated in the past was a tour by a non-specialist to specialist. So for example, we had technologists giving a tour of a museum to people working in the cultural field. And on the other hand, we had a curator giving a tour of a tech lab to technologists. So you could see different perspectives. And another thing that we also try to do is inviting experts with different opinions and then just really having an open conversation about it. So in a lot of physical events, we try to not have a stage, for example, but to have the speakers sitting together on the couch, talking to the people who are in the same room, sitting on chairs, so that there's more of a literally an even playing ground.
Okay, thank you.
Do you, because I mean, you're mentioning in the Homo economist part of Baltan, like you're mentioning like all of these different topics. They're really, I mean, they're really big issues, right? Do you see? Can you tell a little bit about like the general feeling that comes across from the results that you get in these in the talks and the projects that you're showing? Because I mean, I can imagine like it's quite a pessimistic future view, but is there like an optimistic view on it, or is it more hopeful? Is it more pessimistic? Can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're right. It's very broad and very big. What we saw, especially in this last edition, that there are some reoccurring notions or approaches towards economy that we see, you know, coming back from different artists and designers. And for me personally, I think the revaluing of feeling and emotion is a big one, as well as the role of our bodies. So what we see in a lot of artworks or design projects is that they focus again on how does this feel in my body. We had one session about locating capitalism within your body, sort of a body scan that you do, sort of guided meditation body scan. But there's also a lot of talk about revaluing feeling and emotion, so gut feeling, as a way to make decisions. And I think for me as well that it's such a big problem, and not only economy, but everything, you know, the changes that we have to make as a species are so big and so complex that there's almost no way to rationally understand them. You kind of have to feel the urgency to make a change and therefore take responsibility. So I think it's a lot about actually changing yourself in order to change the system. That's what we've found.
And that's also why you guys started the academy, right? Like that's to really create like that. Sorry, my cats keep interrupting, but that's also why you started the academy.
Yeah, to create like a community of learning, a learning community together with the people joining the academy, and to find out together what we can do ourselves to move towards a more desirable system, and you know, whatever that is, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not just for makers, but it's also for just anyone that wants to join.
Definitely.
Cool. Can you also elaborate a little bit on the value of art and design for that societal change that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. Well, it has to do with complexity again. Of course, it's super necessary that we have specialists and scientists and research that know very well what is going wrong or what needs to change. But somehow, I think we also would need the ability of artists and designers to imagine that what is not yet there, to show us alternative perspectives. So to imagine alternative futures, but also to visualize them and to tell stories about, you know, what science is telling us, but tell it in a way that it actually is affecting people and that people could actually relate to it.
Okay, That makes sense. Yeah. Can you also share a little bit, because I mean, obviously COVID has all brought us into a very different bubble, but I can imagine it also created some positive changes or like positive developments that maybe otherwise wouldn't have happened. Do you have some examples of that, how that worked for Baltan?
Yeah, the Economia program was in the end a very positive experience. So we had a way bigger audience than we would have achieved in a 3-day physical festival. It was great to see that you could have content-wise a very satisfying project with international speakers, while not having to fly all these speakers from all over the world to Eindhoven for a few days and then fly them back. That's of course always, you know, you're saying we need to change our system and we need to stop messing up our planet, and then you fly like, I don't know, 20 people over to Eindhoven. So that was good that we didn't have to do that. And also it, because we made these video lectures, we were far more immersed in the content. So normally when you program a festival, you pay people to tell their story, and then they come and then they go, and that's the end of it. But now we really had to dive into the content together with the speakers in order to create these videos.
Well, that sounds like a good development for sure. Do you also collaborate a lot with other entities in Eindhoven and or maybe even in the Netherlands or internationally? Because I mean, you're mentioning you have a lot of international speakers and you're mentioning you have an international reach. And I can imagine Corona has only made that bigger and made it more accessible for a lot of people. But can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I told you already about our collaboration with Trudeau in Eindhoven. And we also collaborate with Johan Knecht, an accountancy firm in Eindhoven. They actually sponsored the Economia program. And we worked together with them on a project that was about a post-labor society. So we had an artist designer at Johan Knecht working together with one of their employees around automation of the work. So they developed a chatbot that could eventually take over the work of that specific employee. And we also work, like the project of Region Arts is one example, but we also work, are part of the Green Project, which is Economia is also part of that. And those are European collaborations. So mostly those are, I think it are 5 till 7 different international partners working together on a shared program.
Okay. In the meantime, we're gonna round up soon. If there's more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or ask them. I also saw Hans shared a file. I don't know if everyone saw it, but Hans, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on what you want to share with that? I don't know if everyone sees it. I will put it in the edit afterwards for sharing it online. But
okay. Well, I have developed this method for business students, that whenever they are called in to solve problems, then not to immediately jump on the idea of solving problems, but first taking different perspectives. And for that model, we developed 4 perspectives. It's a bit like the 4-quadrant model by Ken Wilber. And one point is to take a look from the psychology point of view. So then you're looking at the inside, what makes people do the things they do. Another point is organizational. So then you are looking at the context in which people work and live. That's more the systems view. And then you have the economy perspective. And then, of course, you have the technology aspect. And everything is sort of parachute is over that. That is the environment, or what we nowadays would call climate and ecological view. Now, is that something which you recognize in the approach of the different subjects, or not?
And not so specifically, but I think, well, we work a lot, of course, with makers. So we invite makers to share their perspective on a certain topic.
Yes.
And of course, in selecting those projects or those makers, we try to get a broad scope of different perspectives on it. But we are not doing such a model ourselves. Not so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this model is interesting. We found that because every perspective calls up different questions. So in that manner, you get people to think about it and listen to one another, because there's not one specialist who can give all the answers from the different perspectives. So this might be a help in getting people to talk and come out of their bubbles, you would say.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Okay, you're welcome.
Then if there's no more questions from our audience, I'm just going to give it 1 second to double check that there isn't. Let's see, I don't think so. Then I don't have any more questions for you, but maybe you still have something that you want to share. Now then I want to give you the time, if that's the case. Is there anything that you want to tell us about, any upcoming projects that we should know of?
Well, I think we kind of mentioned it all. There's one thing that I didn't talk about. At the end of the month, there's an open call online for the trajectory co-emerging economies, where in I think a 3-day expert meeting, different future scenarios of our economy will be explored. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye at our channels, and in any case, I would say keep an eye at our channels to see if there's anything interesting coming up. Yeah.
Great. Then hereby I want to finish up our Q&A session. Marlou, I really want to thank you for the talk and answering all of our questions. And I want to thank everyone for watching as well. So I hope that everyone will be there again next week. If you do want to rewatch anything that we discussed today or like in the past, you can go to our website, ehvinnovationcafe.org. And feel free to always contact us if you have any questions, if you want to if you have some interesting speakers that we should include, if you want to become a speaker yourself, or you just want to contact us in any way, feel free to let us know. You can find all the details on the website. So for now, I want to thank you all for watching, and I want to wish you a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.